You're listening to Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast.
When your heart is aching and your world is shaking, don't give up. No, don't give up.
Hello and welcome to Oh My Health, There Is Hope, the podcast. I'm your host, Jana Short. And today I am so excited. I am here with Kristin Burke. I am really excited to share her with you. Kristin's mission is to help others maximize their potential and achieve their definitions of success. As a goal achiever coach, Kristin collaborates with women, entrepreneurs, and leaders to accomplish breakout performances. Her clients excel with goal clarity, grow their confidence, and consistently pursue progress in the direction of their goals. Kristin also hosts the Elite Achievement podcast. Welcome, Kristin. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Jana, so much for having me. I am fired up to be with you this afternoon.
I've been waiting for this. I think we've had to reschedule a couple of times. I'm just so excited. One of the things we ask all of our guests to do is this whole podcast was built on sharing stories of hope. We started where all of you are at right now at the very beginning. We didn't just wake up into this, right? We learned our lessons. We grew through some errors and we've gotten here. So I always ask my guests to share their story of hope because I honestly believe our stories are magical heartbeats and our superpowers. And when we share them, it gives others the courage to go that next step. So do you want to share your story of hope with us today?
Absolutely. And I just want to start by saying I am still wildly in the middle of that journey of learning and messing up and making mistakes and pivoting. And so I believe it's a journey I'm going to be on for my entire life as long as I'm continuing to grow and develop as a business owner. So Jana, my story of hope is going to center around how to move forward when you are off track for a goal. So this story actually came about in a podcast conversation a couple of months ago. And the podcast host asked, "Hey, tell me about the goals you're achieving this year." And I start talking, I'm reading all these books and it's going great. I'm learning a lot. And I've been a guest on different podcasts and I'm off track for my revenue goal. And I thought, why in the world did those words just come tumbling out of my mouth? The host never asked me to talk about being off track for a goal, but it just happened. And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I am the goal achievement coach. I should have this all figured out. If I'm not the one that's setting the right goals and hitting the right goals, then how in the world am I going to help other people navigate this space? And what I have learned in the last couple of weeks since that podcast episode went out is this is the exact situation I need to be going through right now to better serve my clients. I have several clients who are feeling the pressure as we're going up to the end of the year and people are wondering, am I going to hit this goal? Did I set the right goal? Why did I hit this goal? And I went through this exact situation so I can help guide other people to achieve their end of the year goals, to achieve what it is that they're looking to build. So I learned a couple of really big things this year recently. One, a concept about competing commitments. So I went into this year, Jana, and I thought, I love coaching people, but I need to have a course. I got to build a course so I can serve more people and I can scale my business as a coach. And so I took a step back from actively bringing on new clients and I invested the time to create this course. I poured all this time, energy, and effort into the social media launch. And I achieved 10% of my goal of people registering for this course. And I thought I need to do it again because that's what we do is we launch something and not every launch goes great. And so we got to do it again. We got to do it again. We got to do it again. And thankfully I paused and I took a second. I thought, wait a minute, what is it that I really want? I am a goal achievement coach. I love coaching people. I love working individually. I have an awesome book of clients that I get to serve. So why am I intentionally running away from that to create something that I think needs to be created? And I realized that this concept of creating this course was actually competing with my desire to be an incredibly sought after goal achievement coach. And so that was a huge, huge learning opportunity for me throughout this year. And then the second one that I will talk about is understanding the difference between pushing for a goal. And there are sometimes where I get myself into these situations. I set this revenue goal. I'm the goal achievement coach. I got to push to get it. I got to keep doing it. And then learning that difference of the flow and how the universe can give us a lot of insight into what we should be going after. And for me, I know I am in this push versus this flow because my sleep gets interrupted at night. I start overthinking all these little details. And there's a difference when we're achieving big goals. We're going to think through some things and we're going to feel some anxiety. We're going to be nervous. But I have learned that there's a big difference between this push and this flow. And that's what I'm really, really excited to share now in my work is one, if you start setting a goal and you're feeling all this push versus some of that universal flow, it could be an opportunity to reevaluate what it is that you're going after.
By the way, you like hit the nail right on the head. When we say we're in a place of perfection now, that would be a lie. We are constantly growing and always trying to do better, right? We always want to show up better for you. And every time I step out of the flow, because something sounds fun, and I step out of the flow and into the push, it backfires on me and I always say, why did I do that?
Right.
Why did I do that? It was a waste of my time and energy. I helped no one. It was costly. I learned a lesson until the next time. Yeah. But like, I had a friend who just wanted to do retreats. I'm like, oh, that's fun. Retreats, all those women there. That's my thing. And everything I did with that retreat was a push. It was a disaster. And finally, when I said, I can't do this. This is not my zone of genius. I'm forcing everything. It doesn't feel good. And I'm not going to show up the way I should. And I stepped out of it. Again, the flow was like, it's like hitting that wave, that perfect wave. You're like riding high and everything's great instead of crashing on the beach.
Yes. Oh, and I did so much crashing this year. I've been crashing. And I'm now feeling like I'm back into that wave. And I don't know about some of your triggers, but for me, Jana, it's when I get too caught up in social media and looking at what other people are doing, that becomes a really big trigger for me to think of the shoulds and compare where I'm at in business versus other people in business. And it's a real opportunity for me to make sure I'm allowing social media to serve as an inspiration versus creating those comparisons that can get me off track.
I'm really glad you said that too, because I do think that it's kind of like when you're trying to lose weight, you put your value into what the scale says to you. If you've gained 5 pounds, all of a sudden your value decreases, right? They do the same thing when they're looking on social media. So I'm old school, right? I didn't know anything about social media until 9 years ago. I'm in my 60s now, and it just doesn't matter to me. I rarely look at it. I don't pay attention. If someone gives me a bad comment, I'm thinking they must be having a bad day. I don't take it personally. Here's the thing. It's super important that you don't place a value on what you're offering others, what your business is, and who you are on social media, because somebody will be having a bad day and they're going to say, you suck. What are you doing here? And you're going to walk away feeling, I suck. What am I doing here? Don't let your value be determined by the weight of a scale, by the value of someone's comment. Too many likes, not enough likes. Do not put a value on yourself and what you're offering people based on that. And that is a hard lesson to learn. Not for older people, I will tell you, because we're like, I don't care. They don't like me today. They must be having a bad day because I'm awesome.
Well, and that is something that as a newer business owner, so I launched my practice in December of 2019. I came into it. I'm like, I got to have this big Instagram and I got to have all this social media. And honestly, what I am learning is that I am building my business one conversation at a time, one impactful coaching conversation at a time. And I think that that's an important message. There's a place for social media, certainly in my business, but I need to make sure I'm prioritizing the right emphasis on what matters to me and the business that I am building and what gets me the results for my clients.
That is beautiful. And I hope that we all heard that, because it's super hard to do. I was just watching a news media where younger kids who are doing this now are creating tics, like they're having like Tourette's tics. watching people do jerky moves and duplicating them or saying things real quickly. And so it literally can change your beautiful message to something maybe you don't want to share with the world. I definitely want to talk to you, Kristin, because I think you're an absolute genius in this field, about your characteristics of goal achievers. Like that's what this whole thing is about. How do we become goal achievers? And we were just talking before we started the podcast that as a mindset coach, I talk all about the power of your mind. 80% of everything you do in life, who you are, who you share with, is between those two beautiful ears of yours. And 20% of it is strategy, right? So if you're spending all the time on strategy and your mind isn't right, you're probably going to struggle a little bit. So I think that it would be great for you to share some of what those characteristics look like. And it's not all about the vision board, right? That's one step. It's not all about the meditation or the thought process. Those are just one step in that big, beautiful scheme of making things happen for yourself.
Yes. And I'm so glad you talked about 80% and 20% because I think that is so relevant in our work with going after and achieving goals. And as I'm working with clients, if we're talking strategy and I'm noticing we're not making as much progress on strategy, it triggers me to go back and talk about beliefs. Because if we've got a great strategy in place and we're struggling on execution, there's a great chance we need to go back and do some work on beliefs. So here are those 4 characteristics of goal achievers. And you might be wondering, how in the world, Kristin, did you come up with these characteristics? And a little bit of backstory. I've actually been coaching financial advisors since 2009. So I have been studying and coaching and helping people build their practices and businesses for over a decade. And I noticed a big difference between individuals that set their goals and individuals that achieve their goals. And the individuals that achieve their goals, they share these 4 characteristics. Number 1, clarity. Individuals who achieve their goals, they are extremely clear on what they want and why they want it. They're not going after goals because someone else is, their boss told them they had to, they felt like they should. See, are you hearing any of the challenges I had in my own goal I spoke about this year? I lost that clarity. So number 1 is clarity. Know what you want and why you want it. Number 2 is confidence. This is when you start to think in the direction of your goals. So this aligns with a lot of the work that you're doing as a mindset coach. We have to believe that we can start trusting ourselves, leaning into our intuition. And the biggest thing with confidence is so many people will think that they have to wait until they feel confident to take action. And you actually build your confidence by taking action. And that's where working with people like us as coaches can help you work through some of the stories you're telling yourself, the limiting beliefs, help you grow that confidence so you can take that action. And then the third characteristic is courage. And this is when you start to embrace uncomfortable situations and the unfamiliar to start achieving your goals. And again, closely connected to confidence, we start to grow our courage when we take action. And I love talking about fear. And especially right now in October, I'm having a lot of conversations around fear. You know, we're recording this, it's Halloween season, and fear is a false expectation appearing real. And so often we wait until we no longer feel afraid or we don't feel that fear before we take action. And then we often miss out and don't achieve our goals. And then the fourth characteristic is consistency, not to be confused with perfection. But this is when we start to make progress in the direction of our goals. And we really need to explore that all or nothing mentality that can wreak havoc on our goal achievement process. So often we'll go back, you spoke earlier about losing weight. We might have a goal to lose weight and we're like, oh, this is going to be the Monday where I am going to work out every day this week and I am not going to eat any sugar or any carbs. Let's go. And you get through Monday and then Tuesday morning you show up at the office and it's someone's birthday and there are donuts and you eat a donut and you think, that's it. I failed. I'm not going to achieve my goal. And it's like, no, we're human. We're not perfect. So what happens on that Tuesday, if you eat a donut, why don't you still go to the gym later on that afternoon? And then why don't you think differently about, what you want to do on Wednesday? Why do we just give up? And it's that all or nothing mentality that really, really can hurt our ability to achieve our goals. So clarity, confidence, courage, and then consistency are the characteristics of goal achievers.
So these are so powerful that I want to break them down just a little bit. Clarity is super, get focused, get clear on what your message is, who you're helping. for instance, I know this has probably happened to you, Kristin, when people come up and I'm helping them brand who they are, what is their message? And they're, let's say, nutritionist. And I'm like, who are you helping? Everyone. Everyone needs a good nutritionist. They all need to know how to eat right. That's true. But who are you helping? Are you helping, I don't know, elderly people? Are you helping children? Are you helping pregnant women? And when they start really breaking that down and they know, they're very clear on who that person is, you think you're shutting the rest of the world out. But the truth of it is you're put a beacon out to the world on, this is my field of genius. This is where I'm so confident and I can help you in this field. But when you tell everyone I'm doing it all, and you're like throwing spaghetti on the wall, what sticks, right? So getting clarity is super great. Do you have any tips on how they can get clarity?
Yes. So I believe it starts with having a longer term vision. So a 10-year long-term vision, and this could be a whole separate conversation point we can have around visioning, but there's a lot of fear that comes up for people when they vision. Perfection will come up and, well, what if I don't get it right? Or self-doubt. Ooh, can I really achieve that? Or this is one I'll hear often. I can't think that far ahead in the future. Like, really? Tell me more about that. Why can't you? I know I don't have a crystal ball. So you're right. I might not perfectly project what's going to happen in 10 years, but I can think about what the work I want to do, the people I want to serve, the lifestyle I want to be living. So I think a vision, a 10-year long-term vision, is a brilliant clarity piece, because then you can start to set goals today that are going to move you one step closer to that vision. And as you start working on those goals and start achieving those goals, you're going to start to get clearer. And that vision, it's probably going to evolve as you grow personally, as you grow professionally. That vision could also start to grow. So I recommend you think of it like a draft, but that 10-year long-term vision draft is an incredible tool to help you get clear on the goals you're working on today.
By the way, not only is that great advice, think about every single person who's ever gone to college and became a doctor, a lawyer, where there's years of practice. That very first day they show up on campus, they can't think that far ahead, but they know it's there, right? There's a plan though. We have a plan for you. You've checked into the school and now you go here and then you go there. And when you're finished with that, you go there. And the next thing you know, they're walking across stage, finishing their goal with their dang diplomas. So the thinking ahead is what really successful people are constantly doing. So that is a genius idea. The other thing is confidence. And I want to just bring up one little thing before you give them maybe a couple of tips. But for all of you who say, no, I'm super confident. I have clients come to me all the time. I'm so confident. If I ask them to create graphics, they do it. Whenever I know they're not confident, it's like, I don't know why, I just can't convert. I talk to them. I have all this confidence in my program. I can't convert. But the minute they convert one person, that very first person who says, yeah, I want to do that, here's my money, they are on fire and they can't stop converting. So it really changes the projective of how they see themselves and the confidence they have in what they're putting out into the world. So what are some tips that you might be able to share about getting some confidence in your space?
I think confidence is when who you think you are aligns with action in the direction of your goals. And so there have been a few things I have done myself to grow my own confidence. And so number one, I hired a coach. And the very, very first coach that I hired her to help me grow my confidence. And so from an outward perspective, people always thought, wow, you're really confident. But internally, I had all of this, what my current coach calls head trash. I was telling myself all these stories. I was making things up. I had all these negative mental narratives I needed to talk through with a coach in order to grow my confidence to launch my own coaching practice. And so that is one way that individuals can start to work on becoming more confident. And then the other way is to start to recognize when that head trash starts going in your mind. I mean, you even mentioned 80% of what we can achieve is what's happening in between our ears. So we need to start to recognize when we are dealing with a bunch of head trash and have a system or a process to work through that. And I recommend a couple of questions to my clients to help them grow their confidence. Is number one, is what you are telling yourself true? And more often than not, if you literally stop and think, what proof do I have? You usually cannot think of any concrete proof behind whatever story it is that you're telling yourself. But let's say you do. Let's say, yes, I actually do have a situation. Well, then you can stop and ask yourself, is what I am thinking moving me closer to my goal or moving me further away from my goal? And even if you have an ounce of proof, it's usually moving you further away from your goal, and getting yourself to stop and pause and think is a chance to get back in control and become empowered to keep working in the direction of your goals. So sometimes we have to coach ourselves if we don't have the opportunity to work with a coach outside, and get ourselves to stop thinking all those negative thoughts so we can start taking action.
So 2 things that you just said. One, I have never, ever interviewed a successful entrepreneur who did not have a coach. They know that for them to grow, they have to bring in outside sources, just like you are trying to do when you're on social media to extend your reach, right? They have to extend their resources by pulling that stuff out of them and to move forward and to grow. So there isn't one person I've ever interviewed that didn't say, oh no, I've never worked with coaches. I have multiple coaches. The other thing that you talked about for confidence that I found was extremely great was about us going out and educating ourselves and, doing it for ourselves. What we are telling ourselves, you and I just talked about this, Kristin, before we started recording. When I work with a client and they're saying, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I don't, the only person in their way is themselves. And if you keep telling yourselves you don't have it, you will never have it.
You're never going to get it.
Do you ever coach people who say, look, if I just want to make enough money to pay the bills this month? That is like a big no-no to say to me. I'm like, get out of that mindset, or you will always be in the just enough mindset. You will always make just enough to get by. Is that what you want? No, so stop saying it. I hear you say it over and over and over. So get out of those spaces and start getting those beautiful things into your head as you're moving forward. Courage. Next one. Courage is a tough one. I will tell you, here I am doing a podcast and on camera. And I was just telling Kristin that I had a stroke. So be careful, because sometimes I look like I have a resting bitch face, but I had to get my speech back, and stepping up. Sometimes I still get tongue tied over words, especially if I'm tired. I hear them beautifully in my head, but then I say them on stage and I'm like, what did I just say? I don't even know what that was. But I just tell people, look, here I am after having a stroke and having to get my speech back. And here I am doing that. That took courage for me. I was fearful that people were going to say, what's wrong with her? Why is she why did she can't get the words out, right? Or why did she lose focus? But here I am telling people that you can do whatever you want, no matter where you're at in your life, you can make things happen. So that takes courage. What are some tips that you would share with people about learning to be more courageous in your journey?
I think first and foremost, it's to recognize we all face fear. So I know one of the things that I was always challenged with, especially if I go back to corporate and I would look at these incredible leaders that I respected and I admired. And in my mind, I thought they had it all figured out and something was wrong with me. And I thought they're always put together. They always know the answer. They're always perfectly confident. And as I started to get to know these leaders, I thought, oh, wait a minute. No. They have fears just like I do. They're just different fears. So I want to put that out there so our listeners recognize that most of us, if we're on a growth journey, are going to face some kind of fear and our failure. And we just have a way to get past it. And I think that's the biggest difference with goal achievers is they don't get hung up. They don't get caught up and paralyzed by that fear like so many other people do. And so one of the perspectives I've chosen to adopt in my business is that I'm going to fall in love with fear, because if I stop feeling fearful, it's usually a sign that I'm not growing or I'm not maximizing my own potential. So I need to learn that fear is going to be present in a lot of my life. And the work that I'm doing is not to move away from fear, but to move towards it from a strategic standpoint and a smart standpoint. But I also will recommend our clients go through a couple of reflection questions to help them work through fear. So I took myself through this process when I thought about leaving my corporate job and starting my coaching practice. It had been on my heart, Jana, for years, to start a coaching practice. And every time I'd flirt with the idea, I would dismiss it because I was afraid. I was like, am I going to make it? And how am I going to make money? And who's going to hire me? And I've got bills to pay. And this is never going to work out. And I finally did it. I finally did it because I needed to lean in, trust myself, and follow my own intuition. I wanted the next level position at my former career, and I didn't get the job. And now I'm not going to be the first person to come on your podcast and say, I didn't get the role. I didn't get the promotion I wanted. But for me, that was an opportunity to pause, stop pushing. We talked about that push and the flow, stop pushing, stop going after what I thought was going to be my vision of success and climb, the corporate ladder and move up in positions. And I got really quiet. I practiced yoga, I journaled, and I got clear that I wanted to have my own coaching business, but I had to face a lot of fear. And I asked myself this question: what is the worst that can happen? What is the worst that can happen? And I went through this scenario to really bring to light this thing that I was afraid of that was holding me back from following my passion and working in my zone of genius. And I realized, what's the worst that can happen? I don't get any clients. Then what? I don't earn any income. Then what? I can't contribute to our family bills. Then what? We have to move out of our place in Los Angeles. Then what? We move back home with our parents in Missouri. And it's like, oh, well, if that is the absolute worst thing that can happen, that's keeping me from launching my coaching business, well, that might not be so bad. Our daughter can grow up with grandma and grandpa. And it's like, well, that's not my ideal, but hey, that's not so bad. Then though, I don't stay on the what's the worst that can happen. We have to flip the script and figure out what is the best that can happen. And when I started going through the best case scenarios, well, the best case scenario is I get to make a massive impact. I get to help a lot of people achieve their goals. I get to show up and do podcast interviews with you. I mean, this is so cool, the work that I'm getting to do. And I started to look at those two lists and realize, wait a minute, do you know what the real fear is? Not going after the best case scenario. That's truly the worst thing that could happen. And going through that exercise was really, really eye-opening for me. And then of course, like we talked about, I needed to have a strategy because I did not have a long runway. I needed to earn income quickly. So I figured out, okay, what do I think it's going to take to bring on a client? And I built a process and I engaged in activity and I tracked my activity and I had conversations and I sent proposals and boom, here we are today.
I love it. But here, let's talk about by the way, I think that you're super courageous. It is scary going out there and starting something brand new, that especially something you love and you're passionate about, because then if you fail, like you fell on your passion, which hurts. So I totally get that. But if you understand that there really is no such thing as failure. Every time something did not work out for me, I learned so much from that experience that I was able to do it better the next time, and not only be successful, but be more successful than if it had worked the first time. So I hope that you guys can all see that if the worst thing for you is failing, there is no such thing. It just doesn't happen. You do get a lot of feedback on what might work better the next time. But let's talk about consistency. And by the way, this seems super simple, right? Oh, it's just showing up and doing the same thing I'm doing over and over, but it's not necessarily that. What is consistency to you?
So consistency is repeating the actions, the habits, and the beliefs that are going to lead to goal achievement. And so a couple of things that I have seen with my clients and individuals I've coached is it's easier to be consistent right after you set the goal. You have this motivation, inspiration. You're like, yeah, I got this. I'm going to call all the people or have all the conversations or ask for all the referrals. And where our consistency gets challenged is when we face adversity. So if you do the things, but don't get the result right away, you think, oh, it's not working. When maybe it is an opportunity to test something different, but likely we just haven't given ourselves enough opportunity for the results to start to happen. And this is where I recommend a couple of things. So number one, I think it's important that individuals who know they're going to be challenged with consistency. So in other words, maybe they make a lot of emotional decisions versus discipline-based decisions, have a bounce back plan in place. It's super simple. A bounce back plan is where you identify one activity that makes you feel great. For me, it's working out. I know I don't always want to work out, but if I get a good ride on the Peloton, I'm going to feel better afterwards. So pick your activity that's going to make you feel good. And then number two is do one thing and the opposite direction of the story that you're telling yourself. So I had a day early in my coaching career where I was building my business and was very excited. I'm sitting at my makeshift office, which was our kitchen counter in downtown Los Angeles. And I'm looking at my calendar thinking, great, I've got a potential client call and I'm following up with someone that I sent a proposal to. I'll probably get a new client. And all of a sudden the no's started coming in. It was like, nope, this is canceled. This was a no-show. This person said no. And even a good friend of mine canceled our connection call that afternoon because she got called into a meeting with a boss. And I started to feel that wave of negativity building up inside. And it was all the head trash. Why'd you leave your career? You're never going to make it. Who do you think you are? And that's when I thought, put on your tennis shoes and get outside and go work out. And that's really how I created the bounce back plan. Because I realized, okay, if I do something that makes me feel good, work out, I'm going to change the thoughts that are floating around in my brain. And then I came back in and thought, set a referral meeting, just set a meeting to grow your business. And that was that action that stopped that story I was telling myself. So bounce back plan. And then the second quick thing I will say that will help with consistency is what I call the Friday ritual. So every Friday, if I happen to be traveling on a Friday, I will do this on a Thursday night before I travel on Friday. But every week, I end my business week and have so for the last 18 months. I end my business week with the Friday ritual. I write down the wins for the week. And writing down your wins for the week helps grow confidence because by the time Friday rolls around, you probably thought about the cool things you did on Monday and you're only thinking about the negative thing that happened on Thursday. So write down the wins for the week, write down the lessons you learned for the week. So that helps you embrace courage. That helps you remember you're going to face failure. Things aren't always going to go right. What are you learning from it? And then the third thing is write down your priorities for the next week because sometimes we're not consistent because we lose sight of what we're going after and we work really reactively versus proactively. So if you have a process every week to identify, hey, what are the 2 or 3 things I need to prioritize next week to move closer to my goal? That can be really helpful and lead to consistency.
I love it. I think one of the biggest things for me to take away from consistency is it doesn't happen overnight. If you're a blogger, you don't put out one blog and you're famous. If you're a coach, you don't put out your program and 1 million people sign up. You have to consistently show up and keep moving forward. I have a client who wants to be a blogger and she wants to emulate another blogger. And she's like, she's picked up on this and that. I personally reached out to her because a girl after 12 blogs was quitting. I'm done. I blogged. I've been blogging every week for 12 weeks and nothing. So I reached out to this blogger and I said, hey, how long have you been blogging? Blah, blah, blah. How long until you got picked up by all these different places? I blogged for a whole year. Nobody noticed until one person. Every week for a whole year. She consistently showed up and she was blogging now for her passion, not to get picked up. And that's when it happened for her. So consistency, don't give up because that minute you give up might be the moment something beautiful is going to break through. So don't give up for sure. Where can people connect with you, Kristin, so they can learn more about how to get courageous and clarity and confidence and be consistent when they're trying to achieve their goals?
Fantastic. My website is KristinBurke.com. That is Kristin with 2 I's. I'm sure that will be down in the show notes. I am also active on Instagram at Meet Kristin Burke. And then I host the podcast Elite Achievement, and it's available on all the major podcast platforms.
You guys are going to love her. I've been kind of stalking her for quite a while now. And I love watching her growth and her message. And it's always the same. She always shows up in the same space. So she's very authentic. So thank you so much for being with us today, Kristin.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast. Make sure to visit Jana's website, bestholisticlife.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, or listen there, so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show. That'll help too. Let's change the world together, one health expert at a time. Looking forward to seeing you next time.